Now, it may seem a bit early to have that sort of reading. And by the way, I'd just like to thank Tom Ward and Glenn for putting up all these lights and things like that. Absolutely looks lovely. And I'm glad I didn't have to go up a ladder. But it does look good. Thank you very much indeed, Tom. I really do appreciate that. And Glenn. Yeah. As I say, it may seem a bit early for that reading. But over the next couple of weeks or so, I just want to unpack that last line. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth, peace, goodwill towards men. Because, as I say, we're in the period of Advent, and we're looking forward to what that light might bring at Christmas. And it seems to me that this is the central promise that Christmas is supposed to bring. What was promised to the shepherds is supposedly promised to us, which is glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill towards men. And in all the sort of traditional depictions of Christmas, these are the three things that always seem to come across. You have the uniform acknowledgement of God, coming with the baby and all that stuff. And then saying that the result of this will be peace and also goodwill towards men. More than anything else, it's what's wanted in the world. That's absolutely what's wanted. And yet, over the centuries, there doesn't seem a great deal of evidence of it appearing. And today, I want to talk about peace. One way that we would describe the turmoil that's going on in the world at the moment is unpeaceful. Wars are unpeaceful. Refugees are unpeaceful. Much of politics around the world at the moment is unpeaceful. And much of the divides that we see between people, whether that's in terms of opinion or religion or politics or land, it is again unpeaceful. We live in an unpeaceful world. And yet, that's what we want. What all of us, what the world is looking for is peace. I'd like to suggest that, everybody's looking at that. The great artist, when they're painting their art, what they're looking for at the end of the painting of the art is a sense of peace, is a sense of achievement. The sportsman is looking for peace. The person that is driven in their career, where they want to get to at the end of that is peace. Even dictators, even someone that is, taking over another country, what they want is they want to have the peace that, they have their legacy there left. They have done what they wanted to do. And there's a striving, I think, in all people, in all situations, in all drives towards peace. It's the search for peace, what most of us do in our life. Now, I know that's true in my life, right from the first time I can remember. I remember my desire was to experience peace. I always felt that life was just so chaotic. And what I was looking for was an experience of peace. And I noticed that everything I did was really to try and bring me to that peace. And I think each of us has a different path towards our own particular peace. We live different lives, and each of us have different things. But we're all, if we look at it as we're striving, that's really what we're going towards. Each of us has different challenges to face. But when you look at it, if you can realize that your drivenness, whatever your drivenness is that you feel towards anything, is actually a driving towards peace. And when you get that, it's not about whatever end point you're doing, but actually you're trying to heal something in yourself to get to a point of peace. It does make life a lot simpler because you actually know that it's within you and it's not that goal or whatever it is that you're trying to get to. Even wars are fought out of a desire for peace. I will have peace when my homeland is settled, when I'll have peace when I've subjugated my neighbor, when I've got rid of those who are not for peace. So I'm suggesting, to begin with, that the fundamental urge behind nearly all activity is towards peace. Whatever that activity, what we're looking for is peace, a personal peace. And for me, that personal peace is a state in which we can be totally relaxed, at ease, in which my body and mind and soul are relaxed. There's an ease there. It's a state in which I know no fear. Peace, I think, is a state of forgiveness. It is a state through which love flows freely. Peace is a state of inner clarity in which I perceive truth. In peace, there's an inner clarity through which I can perceive truth. It is a state in which I'm able to tell the truth without fear of judgment or rejection. It is a state in which my ego mind is quiet. And it is that state in which I know the essence of my consciousness to be the same essence as all conscious beings. This, I think, is the promise that we're offered at Christmas. And, yet obviously that promise is still very much a work in progress, where, we are a warring world, and it has ever been thus before and after Jesus' time. It's interesting, they say, you can't prove that God exists. Here I am in a chapel talking about God now. You can't prove that God exists. That when you measure the atoms out there, when you do your quantum mechanics, however detailed you get, there's no proof that there is a divine nature. But actually, I think, we're looking completely in the wrong place when we're looking for that proof. It's not out there that one must look for the proof of the existence of the divine. I think it is in here. For me, the proof that God exists, the proof that the divine exists, is in the experience of perfect peace. You can see people who are in very difficult circumstances, and yet they are peaceful. And we've had that sometimes in our lives, where you experience peace even though the circumstances. For me, that is evidence that God exists. The proof that God exists is the experience of perfect peace, which is what the promise of Christmas is offering. The arrival of God is not the arrival of a baby 2,000 years ago. It's the arrival of the promise of perfect peace, of being able to have perfect peace in a troubled world. And that peace is the peace that passes all understanding. It's such a great phrase, the peace that passes all understanding. It's not a peace that can be understood. It's an experience of okayness in a world that doesn't seem okay. And you hear this described in many of the other different religions and wisdom traditions. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, and I think this is a description of peace again. The Tao is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. Its net covers the whole universe, and though its messages are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. Being in that presence of peace, being in that presence of God, the realization, when you are in that peace, there's the realization of the divine within that enables us to perceive true reality. And when we realize that reality, we realize that our role in life is to give our mind, to give our will over to that universal mind. That comes with the experience of peace. There's a giving up. It's interesting, in the Annunciation, when the angel comes to Mary, the key words is, let it be as you have said. She gives up completely to the arrival of something There's a peace in her, even though it's in extraordinary circumstances. And when you do that, when you give up, you then, to take the phrase, you become children of God. Because as John says, we're children not born of our minds, children that fight to survive, but that idea of being born again, children not born of natural descent nor human decision, but born of God. That peace means you're coming from something within, from that divine spark. We become born of the divine, which enables us to reach that place of peace. And really, this is what everybody wants. This really is what everybody wants. Everybody is wanting this. In my past life, I said I was tossed from pillar to post, from one yearning to another, swept on by wishes and desires. But deep down, what I wanted was that experience of peace, the peace that passes all understanding. And I think that is the desire of all people. But that peace, I don't think, is an end point. You don't sort of get that peace and then croak, Oh, I've got it. No. It is the point from which you can begin. You can begin to operate. You become the still point in the turning world. You're not thrown around. When you're in that peace, you're not thrown around by the world. You can become like a gyroscope. You can become centered, which is, what is the promise of the angels. It is a new beginning. You cannot make a contribution towards peace in our world until you've found peace in yourself. And if you've not found peace within you, you're just being driven on by the waves that are surging within you. I mean, you might come out with the right words and the right slogans, but in reality, you're just demonstrating out the storm that's raging within us. And as a result, we create the storm around it. You see it in demonstrations. We create the storm. Unless you've created that peace within ourselves, you're out of control and will only add to the drama that's around you. Richard Rohr always puts it well. He says that unless you can transform the pain within you, you're bound to transmit that pain to others. And we just see that so often in the world. People transmitting the pain that's within them around the place. But once there is peace within you, then you're not subject to the ravages of that pain and desire. You're not at the effect of your past. You are able to look with equanimity as to what's going on and act, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, as Micah said, to act justly, to love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. You do that in a sense of peace. And you can see it with the great leaders in the world, who have faced strife in their time. In our time, Gandhi, Mandela, Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama. They're all fighting for justice, but from a place of peace. They're peacemakers because they are children of that divine. They were not out of control through the ravages of inner emotions. They came from that place of peace, and their aim was to bring peace. The word peace occurs 88 times in the New Testament. And it's in every single book of the New Testament as well. And it's the key idea of the kingdom of heaven. Jesus defines children of God as those who are able to make peace within themselves and share it around the world. Paramahansa Yogananda, who founded the Self-Realization Fellowship, said in 1932, "Those who make peace in the factory of meditation are children of God. God first manifests peace to those who meditate. Those who feel God as peace always want to manifest the peace God in their home, in their society, in their neighborhood, in the nation, and in all nations and races. Anyone who brings peace to an inharmonious family establishes God there. Anyone who, forsaking national greed and selfishness, works to establish peace among warring nations is establishing God in the heart of those nations. But anyone who stirs up strife among brother nations under the guise of patriotism is a traitor, a faithless child of God. Anyone who keeps family members, neighbors and friends fighting through fostering, if they keep them fighting through fostering falsehoods and gossip, is also a maker of disturbance and helps to oust God from the temple of harmony. Jürgen underwrote that in 1932, and it's still true today. We have to be peacemakers, not peace forcers. And that depends on our inner life, in our ability to create an equanimity within that leads us to be able to make peace without. And we have to realize that we don't know the true nature of things. We have to yearn for the presence of the divine. As it says in the Beatitudes, we have to be meek enough, not always to strive for our own way. We have to trust that peace in the righteous way. We have to realize our sense of oneness and have the compassion to let go of the rational mind in order to find that universal mind where peace exists. And that peace, the peace that passes all understanding, is what qualifies us to be peacemakers as children of the universal mind. I think this is the course that humanity has to take as consciousness evolves from strife to peace, from rationalism to a visionary approach, from raping the planet to a caring approach, from many nations in the world to many races to one race, the human race, and from many species of varying importance to a respect for life in all forms. That is where peace is going. And we're all on the way to that destiny. And that is the way it's going. Even if it takes 300 years, that is the wisdom. And that will happen, no matter how many idiots get in the way of it. And each of us alive today has the opportunity of being a part of that journey. We all face those feelings and judgments within us that race up. They race up like waves and demand that we act. Our minds make us demonstrate out those waves to those around us of anger and blame and frustration and unkindness in all forms. And our role is not to be at the effect of those feelings in our family, with our friends and acquaintances, in our community, with our politics. We have to deal with these feelings internally and therefore be able to create a peaceful atmosphere around us. But it's interesting that you can't think your way into this. You say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. You can't think it. The mind's not built for that. The mind's built to help you survive. And therefore it's going to help you, it's going to help you get rid of pain and anxiety rather than transform it. It will push it onto somebody else. You might think, right, I'm going to do my best not to let him annoy me. But I'll not let him get to me. I'll not react. We make those decisions. It never works, because it's the heart, not the mind, that makes these changes take place. It's the heart, not the mind. It's in our practice that we have to take these feelings and make peace. We have to make peace with these feelings. They're not going to go away. We have to be with them and melt them with the peace of love that's in the stillness of our hearts, that's available to us. And it's through prioritizing, I think, the heart over the mind, in the focus on the breath or the meditation or the mantra or the flame, that enables the heart to overcome the mind. Our hearts have to become stronger than our minds so that when the mind wants to react, the heart comes in and brings us to a point of compassion. Which is why, as we said the other week, education is so important. The heart has to be brought through. There has to be an education. We have to realize that yearning for peace. We have to realize that we have to model it with our friends and family, because I think it is the way to the future. My belief is that we're going forward and that ocean is coming up the beach, and that with a global connection is coming the evolution of global consciousness. And although it doesn't look good, I think it is coming. We just have to fasten our seatbelts because it is going to be a bumpy ride. So it's the peace, I'm on my last page now, the peace that passes all understanding. Peace is the evidence that you're practicing the presence of God, even if you can't see tangible proof in the circumstances around you. Which is why Jesus was at peace on the way to Jerusalem, and why others in hugely trying situations have found peace. And I think we're offered that peace at Christmas, and yet few of us reach for it. Mainly because we don't realize that that is what we're actually reaching for. That's what we want. It's not the shiny presents. It's the peace that we want. The peace doesn't come by a miracle. It comes by recognizing that it's the aim that we have. That the pain we feel is, in a sense, a desire for peace. So Christmas is actually a challenge. It's a challenge to find the correct path in life and to follow it. Not just believing in Jesus, believing that peace is possible. And actually people do believe it. They believe it for a couple of hours, and it's probably somewhere between, when they come to the Christmas service, everyone's all, oh, yes, peace is possible. Isn't it wonderful? And then they go home and they're all lovely. They wave to their neighbors. They see the decorations. And then they get up in the morning and they have their presents, and peace is still possible. It's after lunch, really, that's when it really falls apart, So the world does have it for 2 or 3 hours, that peace on earth, goodwill towards men, and then it's just boom. But that's what we have to hold on to. It's possible. Reality kicks in. But I think the promise is there. And for those of us willing to do the work, peace is available. So listen, I just want to open it up to anybody. We're talking about peace now. I mean, I'm really suggesting that the fundamental drive in life is a drive to peace. And actually, if you want to talk about in religious terms, that, you can say that drive to the divine, the drive to God, the drive, whatever it is, what people identify as drive to God is a drive to experience that peace that's at the center of all things, and that all of us, to some extent, have that in our lives. So does anybody like to disagree or talk about the world situation or anything at all about peace? Bruce, thank you.
You mentioned that easy enough said, but you can't think your way there.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting on the cushion or being mindful, and you're working through, that great phrase between the trigger and the response is the pause.
Yeah.
And of course, that's when our prefrontal cortex sort of takes over and says, well, no, wait a minute, this trigger is not a big deal in the cosmic swing of things, and what would be an appropriate response. But then how to start to create a habit of just automatically putting things in perspective and staying calm and, with equanimity and so forth. There are levels of frustration. I mean, 2.5-year-olds want what they want when they want it, and they have a temper tantrum. That's the only thing that have any power. Some people never grow out of that. At a deeper level, people are semi-traumatized, could we do shadow work or whatever. So I just was curious if you had any thoughts on, how to do the work, to get to black belt peace.
Well, if I look at my life for the moment, I was very unpeaceful in my younger life. I mean, my father died when I was 2, chaotic life at school. And I noticed that, really, what I identified that I wanted was a family. I wanted that peaceful family to exist within. And really, it was such a driving force. And as I got older, it transpired into wanting to get married and wanting to be within a loving family. And I felt that drive. I was in various companies, and you have these consultants that they hire in, and they say to you, what is it you really want in life? They're expecting me to say, I want to be a millionaire. I said, I want to get married. They said, well, that doesn't count here, but I did. I totally identified with it. And and it never went away. And, my dysfunction, my daughter's here, so I won't talk too much about my dysfunctionality. But my dysfunctionality was quite high. And you know, I came to the age of 40, such an old age to be, and I got to the point where I've been sort of looking for so long, and I decided just to give up and be okay with not getting married, not having a family. And you know, it was at that moment that the peace arrived. And I think the black beltness of peace is about giving up. It's about giving up on the agendas that we think that we want to get in order to experience whatever it is. And when I gave up, I hadn't identified that it was that sort of peace that I was looking for. But the moment I gave up, I just fell into a peace. And you know, that peace has been with me since then. I've had that. I feel lucky. I've had that in my life. I think my meditation practice helps. And the fact that I met Heather a couple of years later and married her and had a family also helped as well. But for me, it's the giving up that is the key thing within it. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Anybody else like to ask a question or share an experience or say anything? Thank you, Carol.
I had a nurse that I worked with for years, and she and her husband had been trying for 7 years to get pregnant. And I'll never forget the day she came into the clinic. I kept thinking, you're trying too hard. I'll never forget the day she came into the clinic and she said, we're done. We're not going to have children. We're going to keep rafting. We're going to keep hiking. We're going to keep doing everything we want to do. I'm done. 2 months later, she was pregnant. And there was this panic in her because she had felt at rest with their decision, and now they're going to be parents. But it was, she finally admitted, this is the way our life is going to be. And it changed, kind of like you.
That's such a good example. And that is a massive thing, isn't it? I mean, you know, those of us that have known people that are desperate around fertility, it's a huge thing. And that's such an incredible story. And we know people in the valley have had that experience as well. You know, I know people who've, you know, just completely given up. And then suddenly it happens. Yeah, at the back. Thank you. I don't know your name. It's
Holly.
Holly, yeah. Oh, Holly. Yeah, I didn't recognize you under that. Hi.
So,
yeah, I didn't recognize you under
I
yours.
just came from work. So
Yes, that's right. Holly, how lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. I just want to say my experience walking in here this morning, having not been here in a while, and I know you said, you know, church can typically be a peaceful place, but it felt incredibly peaceful and warm to walk into. I came in late when you were playing maybe your first piece, and it was just so warm and wonderful to walk into. So thank you for creating this space. And then I appreciate the messages that you brought this morning. And I just think about the experience of being around a baby.
Yeah.
Not a crying baby. Right? So babies have sometimes long periods of peace, and or short, or maybe you don't have a baby, but the babies have grown, or you've put somebody to rest, or you peek into a room where somebody's resting. Maybe it's your child, or maybe it's your elderly parents, and that sense of peace that, at least that I've felt when I've observed somebody resting, or maybe I look to my partner in the middle of the night when I've awoken and I see him resting peacefully. And so I cherish those experiences when I actually feel it. And then I think about the imagery of Christmas and all of the busyness, but then at the center is the baby being held and loved. And so I guess as I travel through this busy and unpeaceful world, what picture can I remember that will bring me that experience and I can remember and feel it in my body, whether it's the candles that are lit, or the baby sleeping, or my partner sleeping. So I just appreciate the reminder of these pictures of peace that are absolutely real and part of our daily experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that, and thank you for.
No, that's lovely.
Yeah.
I love that idea that we do get those glimpses of peace in our daily life. And it's almost like when we have those experiences of peace, we just walk over them because we're not in pain. Just for a few moments. But those are the experiences where we just get a sense of that sleeping child or whatever it is. There is peace. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Amy.
Last week you talked about our breath.
Yeah.
You spent maybe the most of the Sunday talking about breath. And I've been thinking, it's been coming up a lot this past week. I went to an event at ACES on Monday night, which I highly recommend. They're having another one tomorrow. But she spoke about breath, and it's just kind of been triggering around my world. And so what I know, where I can find peace in the craziness, if I can just say, wait, take a breath, sit down, and that is where you can get quick peace. Yeah. If you logically and, just take it in. So thank you, because it's definitely a good secret to know.
That's so good, Amy. I mean, I so appreciate you mentioning that. It is in the breath, in meditation. I know myself, I am at my most peaceful in meditation because I'm just in the breath and there's nothing else going on. And there is a still point and the world is absolutely turning around you in that way. Thank you. It's lovely. Okay, anybody else?